Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall drywall repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
What a great day, James. How you doing?
I'm pretty excited today.
Pretty excited. Great times around Hole in the Wall, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of good news floating around. We're excited about the things coming up, so can't wait to make some big announcements. Fun today is I've got a friend of mine here, and I've known her for a couple years now, and she's got her own podcast. She's got a great YouTube channel, and so we're super excited to have Kristi Nowrouzi here. And I call her Credit Kristi. You know, she's got a lot of cred. She's got a ton of the credentials here.
Did you just make that up, or does she actually use that? You should. That's really good.
Let me applause her in so she can start talking.
Okay, I want to hear
Welcome,
this.
Kristi. We're so glad you're here.
Hey, guys. So glad to be here. Thanks. It's awesome.
Our fan base for you. So welcome to the show. Thanks for
you.
being here. And I didn't memorize some of your credentials, but I know you've got a ton of activities going on. I cannot wait to kind of dig in and kind of hear about it.
She is one busy person.
I love being busy.
Yeah.
It keeps me out of trouble.
Have you always been sort of high energy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I'm number 4 out of 5 kids. So I was that one that was always like, look at me.
Right.
Oh.
Trying to get somebody's attention, right?
Yeah.
I was the oldest, smacking the little ones away.
That's what the oldest do.
Yeah.
That's their job. Well, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I've been in the finance and real estate industries for 22 years. I don't know what else I would do with my life, honestly. But yeah, I started in real estate when I was 17. I don't know if you've ever heard of on-the-job training in high school. It got one of the elective classes that nobody wanted to take. So I got to leave school a few hours early. Nice. My on-the-job training teacher said, hey, you know what? I think you'd be great at this real estate office. And so I applied to be a part-time receptionist, and it just kind of went from there.
Wow.
Never looked back.
So that was actually in the real estate office. So now you're not selling real estate anymore. You're now doing...
Well, at 17 years old, so I started at a Century 21 office. And then right out of high school, I got my real estate license. And I thought, what normal person is going to take an 18-year-old seriously? I couldn't even spell amortization, and I'm trying to pass a state exam, right? So I'm living with my parents. I'm still hanging out with all the, kids from high school. I thought, what am I doing? So the chicken in me, the lack of confidence in me, went into property management because it wasn't sales. And what I learned quickly is somebody's going to be angry at you. The owner of the home is mad that they have to replace the refrigerator. The tenant's mad that they didn't have a refrigerator for 2 days. So I was always like that person that somebody was angry at. And I hate conflict, and I need people to like me. So it didn't fit well. But I was a real estate broker assistant for a while. I got into mortgages, did that for about 6 years. And then global financial crisis. I had no idea our industry was going to implode. My business shut down. Literally, the company I worked for closed their doors. We lost hundreds and hundreds of lenders. It was just such a crazy time. So I wound up morphing into a short sale negotiator. So a short sale negotiator helps people avoid foreclosures. And so I did that for about 4 years. Helped almost 500 families. Some people just did it because, somebody recommended that they do it. The attorney said, your accountant or somebody, you're not going to recuperate the money. Just cut your losses and move on with your life. And then there were some really tough stories. I'll never forget this one story where a lady, her son committed suicide. And she couldn't get off the couch for 2 years. I couldn't imagine.
I bet.
And so she wasn't earning income. She wasn't paying her bills. And, to come alongside somebody in that kind of moment in their journey was special, but it takes a lot. It was very emotional. So I did that for 4 years, and then sold real estate for a few years, and now back into mortgages.
Wow. So you're currently working at Empire Financial?
I am.
Excellent.
Yes.
And you do just mortgages there?
Mortgages for all types, all styles. I love helping new investors or wannabe investors become investors. A lot of times people think that they have to have a lot more than what they need.
Right.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to be able to educate and say, you don't need that much. And since Hole in the Wall is all of what we're about here.
Uh-huh.
We have a fix and flip loan, for example. If somebody wanted to go in, renovate a home and sell it or do a refinance at the end to keep it,
Mhm.
10% down.
Really?
Pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That really is cool. Yeah, there definitely is Bill's got the real estate gene. I'm not much of one. I know I can see the value in it. I own my own home. I've owned several homes, but I'm just this a risk thing. I'm just not in my. I'll fix it for you.
There
But,
it
you
is.
know.
And we need you for that too.
Yes, yes. But I do know the value in it, and it's nice that there is options out there, because I know many people that if they just had a chance, it could launch them in. Like even young homeowners, if they could buy a fixer up or fix it up, live in there for a couple of years, and then turn
Yeah.
around and make then they start building that
Yeah.
snowball of money.
My favorite thing is teaching really young or people starting off, not necessarily young age-wise, but getting started off with this next step of, home ownership.
Mhm.
It's not for everybody, but a really cool strategy to build wealth through real estate. Buy your first home with as little as 3% down. Live in it for a year, 2 years, beautify it
Yep.
while you're living there. Then go buy your next home. It requires 5% down.
I'm the poster child. I did exactly that.
There you go. Live in it for a year or two, turn it into an investment property,
Yeah.
go and buy your next home 5% down. So I've shown people, if let's say you were swimming around the $400,000 purchase price, it's a good purchase price to get into. You're comfortable with the payments. The tenant will cover the rent in that price point, for instance. 5% is $20,000. You divide that over 24 months. Let's say you're going to move every 2 years. It's $833.33 a month to put aside in savings, right?
Mhm.
So you buy your home, you go on to the next one. If you did that every 2 years, in 30 years, you'll own 15 homes. And let's say it didn't appreciate a penny. You would own $6 million in real estate.
Yeah, that's impressive, isn't it? And if you want to sell the home every 2 years, you can live tax-free. I know several people that will buy a home, do the repairs, and then they move every 2 years. And the federal tax law is that if that's your primary residence for 2 of the previous 5 years,
That's exactly right.
then any profit you make off of it up to $250,000 or $500,000 as a couple
Look at you.
is
You know
now
it.
tax. No, I listen, 30 years buy-in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
a lot. That's great advice and great information that a lot of people just don't know.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, most of us are in the 30-something bracket and probably going to wind up being 40-something someday, so we can, repay everything we've been borrowing.
Mhm.
And if taxes are just going up,
Yeah.
we've got to find ways to shelter
Yes.
and protect our income. So that's an extraordinary way
Yes.
to
No, I'm
maximize
bought
your
in.
risk.
I remember looking at it early on, thinking by comparison, if I want to invest my money in stocks, if I have $100,000 or even just $5,000, the first thing the stockbroker says is, "Give me your $5,000," and now you begin buying stocks. But with that same $5,000, I can use it, as you said, as a down payment. I can buy a property.
Yep.
And now I have an asset that's worth way more than $5,000 that is potentially appreciating.
Yes, you're leveraging.
You're leveraging it. And if something is to happen, a tornado comes by, a fire happens, I'm also insured against loss.
Correct.
Try doing that in the stock market.
Right. And a lot of people don't know you can get a renovation loan as a purchase. So you can have the funds there to renovate the home.
Mm.
And you can even roll in up to 6 months worth of payments. So if you're living someplace else, renting or owning, you don't have to have 2 housing payments while you're in the process of renovating. If it's too much of a renovation to live in
Yeah.
while you're doing it.
Is there a specific name? I want to say there's like, it used to be a,
If you're thinking about a number, you're thinking about an FHA loan, it's a 203K.
yeah, I started to say 201. I go, I'm pretty close.
Yeah,
203K.
very close,
Yes.
203K.
But it works on the same principle, right? Where you can
That's it.
buy the property and then borrow enough to do the repairs as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And then there's also a conventional version of it. It's called home style.
Oh, okay. There's something new.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. So obviously, to get a loan, you need to have credit.
And yes, and that's really where I kind of positioned myself as Credit Kristi, because I found that there was this empty space in the finance world where people really weren't talking about credit. When I went on to social media, it was somebody who took a class and now call themselves a credit repair specialist. But what they're really out for is for you to feed them $100, $200 a month while they just dispute things on your credit. the angle I take is let's understand the rules of the game so you can win. And then we have to change behaviors too.
Mm,
So I learned much of my actions from what I saw from my parents. And I think that's how a lot of people learn because we're
sure.
not taught this in school, right? So it's more caught than it is taught. My parents didn't sit down and say, this is how credit and money works because they didn't get it. So you can't teach something you don't understand. So I just dove in deep and got as much training as I could. So I got a couple titles, a certified credit specialist and certified credit counselor. The certified credit counselor was almost equivalent to a real estate license where it was 60 hours and a 100-question exam through FINRA. So
Wow.
I didn't do it to become a credit repair specialist. It's just not in my wheelhouse. I don't have time to take that on with individual people, but I take that information that I've learned and I share it through my podcast. I
Okay.
share it through videos on social media so I can teach a larger group at one time because there are some financial gurus out there that say you don't need to have credit. And it's just not. Whether it's personally backed or business, you have to establish credit and then protect it. But what does good credit look like?
Mhm.
And you can actually establish credit without necessarily going into debt. There's a lot of strategies to do that. But what is a reflection of you on paper is your ability to borrow money and pay it back on time. It's literally that simple. But if you've got negative things against you, like collections or late payments, it looks like a mismanagement of funds. And now you're at greater risk. You're paying higher on interest charges. And then that means less cash flow in your business or in your personal pocket because you're paying more in interest charges. So it's like this vicious cycle that people get caught in. And it's usually just a lack of understanding, lack of information.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I love about your YouTube channel because they're not long videos; they're just little short blurbs, but they teach so much. I mean, when you talk to one about how to boost your credit score by being on a family member's added user of a credit card,
Yeah.
or something like that, just a little trick here or there, that's legit, but it benefits.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I've helped more people that didn't have a credit score or had a low credit score become a homeowner within a couple of weeks, got them eligible by becoming an authorized user on somebody's credit card. And you're just borrowing their credit history. You're not using their credit. You're not swiping a card. You're not adding to their balance or anything else. You're just simply borrowing their history on paper. And the coolest thing is, if you ask mom for access to her Discover card as an authorized user, she's had this Discover card for 15 years. You have 15 years worth of history now added to your credit report, not just from the day it started reporting moving forward. It's extraordinary. It's a great way for
That
young.
is some new information. I have never heard that. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Really neat.
If you've got young adults and you want to help them get started right, that is the best way for them to become known on paper with a credit history. And the coolest thing is when you're an authorized user, because you're not obligated to repay that debt, it doesn't go against you in your debt to income ratio when you're applying for, say, a mortgage.
Hmm.
I did not know that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know this was when I married my wife. She had amazing credit. Mine was pretty good, but she had an Amex card. That she had for years, and then I became an authorized user on that card when we got married. And then when we went to buy a house, all of a sudden that history showed up on my credit report. I'm
Mhm.
going, that's not even my card. But since we were in the same house with
Yeah.
an authorized user, it was like, oh, I didn't realize.
That was yours now.
It's
At
mine
least,
now.
at least
Cheers.
on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
All right, so where we've talked one tip already. You got any more tips? Any more credit tricks, tips that we can help?
Yeah,
people
so
with?
a lot of business owners have to start off personally backing their debts
Right.
and their loans. So it's really important though that you show up great on paper and then find out from your bank, your lending institutions, what does it take for me to no longer have to personally guarantee this? What do you need to see on paper? How do I get that information on the business side of things so that way I don't have to personally guarantee it anymore? So pretty extraordinary there. And then there's ways to buy real estate. You can buy real estate in the name of like an LLC, those kinds of things. So if somebody wants to talk to me about that, you can do that. But especially like if you're a business owner and you have brick and mortar, work towards owning your place, rent it to yourself, right? So you can further establish. But one more trick, Loans have per diem. And so that's Latin for per day. There's a daily interest charge. If you pay a little early and a little extra, that interest doesn't go flowing out to the lender, it stays in your pocket. So let's take a 30-year mortgage, because that's what most people start with a mortgage. You can turn that 30-year mortgage into a 23-year loan just by paying, instead of on the first of every month when it's due, set up biweekly payments. So there's some people who have gotten paid biweekly, right? And there's 2 months out of the year that they got that third Friday paycheck. So it's kind of like that. There's 52 weeks, divide it in half, it's 26. So you'll make 26 half payments in a year. We'll divide that in half again. That's 13 full payments in 12 months. So you're shaving off that interest early, and you've eliminated 7 years worth of payments. It's extraordinary. And for a mortgage, that equals tens of thousands of dollars in interest.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's a powerful concept.
That really is.
Yep.
Well, sweet. Tell me some more, Kristi. I need more of this knowledge. It's funny because, my son just bought a house, and obviously we buy homes as we move through life, and we pick up on a lot of things now. Like, I was trying to coach my son when, he issued the bank statements to the mortgage person, right? And he's got all my bank statements. I go, great. You have to do it again in a week or two.
Yeah.
He says, what do you mean? Why would I give it to him? I said, well, this loan process is going to take a couple of months. So every week or two, he's going to want to have updated pay stubs. He's like, what are you talking about? So trying to coach him through that, and then trying to coach him through, just be prepared for when you go to closing. There's going to be money that's got to get transferred. There's going to be a stack of paperwork that you're going to be signing your life away. And it was one of those things that I almost wish there was more of an education prior to. And the mortgage person did a fine job, and the realtor did an amazing job. But, you don't know what they don't know.
Right. And there's so much information. It's almost hard to be able to share that and then
that's
be able
true.
to retain it and apply it. So I had so many people coming to me saying, I want to buy my first home. I don't know where to start. So a few years ago, I literally wrote a book called First Home, Where to Start and How to Win. So that was my first book that I wrote. It came out in 2021, I think, in 2021. So that's a great resource for first-time home buyers. It talks about everything from how condos are underwritten very differently. It's a very different type of property from any other type of property because you only own the inside walls in. You don't own the dirt on which your condo building sits on. So it's underwritten differently. There's different rules, and everything from how credit affects your interest rate and even your eligibility, how we look at income. So if you are self-employed, we look at the tax returns as far as your taxable, your adjusted gross income, not necessarily 1099 W-2 income. We just look at that like end result. So tax returns come in when you are a contractor, when you're self-employed. So if you have an excellent accountant, they're doing a good job of minimizing your tax liabilities. But that could also bite you when it comes time to get financing. So one of the really extraordinary options that we have some loan programs that are 1099 only, profit and loss only. We don't have to go off of tax returns, but it's one of those things, interest rates are typically a little bit higher than what you could get as a conventional loan. But would you rather pay a little bit more in interest or thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more in taxes to the IRS? So you choose.
Well, did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're hole-in-the-wall drywall repair. And for years, we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with hole-in-the-wall drywall repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. There was a couple horror stories lately where a friend of mine was a waitress, and you can claim whatever your tips are. Now they're more credit card, but when I was a waiter back in my high school days,
cash,
it
baby.
was cash. And so there was a game. They oh well, I just want to make sure I claim just enough to beat minimum wage. And so she did that for years as a waitress, lived well, and then she went to go buy a home, and she did not have
You don't make enough money, girl.
Right.
money on paper. And then I just recently heard of a lawyer. She started her own practice, and she's she doesn't pay herself at all. Everything runs through her company, and she wanted to buy a condo, and she didn't have her accountant did a great job
Yes.
limiting her tax burden.
Yeah.
But she didn't make enough money to buy the condo. And
It's definitely a challenge. There are rules to play by. For example, we could do a bank statement loan. So we'll average out the deposits over 12 months, and we can use that as income. So 1099 only, those kinds of things. So there are some coloring outside of the lines, but it is very, very challenging. And your son probably felt so vulnerable and exposed. Think about all of the transactions that are going through your bank statement, and this complete stranger seeing what your actions are. Like it's a very challenging place to be.
yeah, are they going to calculate all the times we go to Taco Bell? Because you really open the books to like every magazine subscription, every time you go out to eat. It's all right there.
If you don't want anybody to see it, pay for it by a credit card and then pay the credit card off from your bank account.
Yeah.
So I don't ask for the transactions on your credit card statement, but yes, it's a very weird place to be when you're going and asking for financing. It's very, very strange.
Yeah.
And then my last book that just came out in August, it's called Finish Financially Free. It's really about our beliefs and mindset about money. So I have literally seen thousands of credit reports, and there's obviously growing trends in some ways. And I'm seeing how people are using credit cards as installment loans. And it was never meant to be that way. And so you don't want to walk around paying $27.99, $29.99 on APRs to what you're essentially using as a loan. But a lot of people are doing it. And it's scary because we are one paycheck away from not being able to make that payment, and it could become a domino effect in all of the other things in our lives. So where do we get our beliefs? And we've never questioned them. A lot of us now then come together in a relationship, and your significant others never question their beliefs. You've never questioned your beliefs.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, a lot of what you have is just, it's caught more than taught.
Right.
It's just, what have I seen demonstrated in front of me?
Correct. And then you've just kind of, like, I remember getting my first paycheck. Nobody told me all of these deductions would come out. I was like, who's FICA, and why does she have her hands on
Why am I supporting her?
So nobody told me that, I was expecting X dollars and I got much less. And I also wish in hindsight that for my very first paycheck, it was just a requirement. Kristi, you save 20%. Spend and do whatever you want to with the rest of it, but you save 20%. How different would your life look like if that were the just the way it was? And so I'm looking at what people believe to be true about money. And my belief is money is a tool, and we need to use the right tool. If all you had was a hammer, everything would look like a nail, right?
Right.
But we need other tools in our toolbox, and that comes with knowledge and gaining wisdom, but getting it from the right people too. So be careful who you listen to on TikTok. And I made $1 million last weekend. And it's just it's insane. Some of the people that are out there trying to teach. So make sure that if you're getting information from somebody, that they've got some legitimate information.
In terms of business, we look at it, and James and I have this conversation all the time. When we do drywall repair work, so we need ladders. So we need that tool. We also need drywalling. We need mud and what. But just as much as we need those things, we need finance sometimes. And so money becomes a commodity for you in business, and it's looked at a little bit differently than your personal finance, but critical.
Critical for sure.
Well, you hit on something earlier, because as our audience are small business owners, and credit is so important to have and to really to leverage. Like our very first line of credit we got at Hole in the Wall, we didn't need the money. We cash everything out. Heck, we didn't even have a credit card for years, but we got a line of credit. It was like $30,000, $40,000. It wasn't a ton of money. And just went to our local bank and got one, and just to have. Just in case, right? But that was a personally guaranteed loan that Bill and I had to back that loan, right? So if the business didn't pay it, they're going to come out for me and Bill personally. But having the ability to have that, Amex card or that line of credit just for the what ifs, and then, you have a bad month and all of a sudden you take a 10, 20% hit for that month. Or maybe there was a hurricane and there was no work for a couple of weeks because we were all recovering from the hurricane. Now, there's going to be plenty of money to be made, for a couple years later. But in that moment, you need a buffer. And that's where this credit kind of comes in. But being able to utilize that kind of credit is important. But to get it, you have to have good enough credit personally to back that business.
Yeah, and I remember at the time you were pointing out, we don't want to wait till we need this.
That's exactly right.
You have to go get this lined up before you need it. And just one other quick comment: it becomes the shock absorber because the economy does go up and down. Our business is cyclical. In the wintertime, it can slow down a little bit. So if you have a resource to keep everybody paid and to keep everything moving, it just becomes that shock absorber and just takes the hard bumps out.
Absolutely. It's almost like having something in your medicine cabinet at home. As soon as you start feeling that scratch in your throat, you want to be able to go and get the zinc and the boosters. Right. You want to have that there. So a lot of times people will wait until they need it. But now you look like you need it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And now it's like, are you a risk?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then there's the temptation because it's there. Maybe we could splurge for a little something.
Right.
And so there's a discipline involved in operating that.
For sure. And I think a lot of times, especially when you're a sole entrepreneur, a very, very small business, you are the startup. It's really easy to just have everything coming out of your personal bank account. I don't think that's good advice. I think you need to have a separate and two. I think you should have an operating account, which is a checking account, and a savings account, because taxes are going to have to get paid. You've got to have a marketing budget. You've got to start saving towards being able to get your first hire, right? So that money should be getting moved over to your savings account. To your point, Bill, that you don't have that dangling in your face like, oh, look, I've got this extra money I can go
There's
into.
a Tahiti vacation right there.
That's right.
For the taking.
That's right. But it's named. It's got a name for something, and then there's no commingling of business and personal funds. It's really easy for your accountant to help you.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. That's one of the things that we had to bridge as the business grows, because in the beginning it was just me, and when I needed money, I went to the business account and got it, and that was one of the differentiators. There was kind of this bridge I had to cross, that company money isn't mine.
That's right.
That it's made to run the company, and I get paid this much now. Like, hey, wait a minute. But that's a lot of small businessmen never are able to make that leap. And that's
paying yourself a paycheck. Listen, even if there's surplus, you can do dividends. You can do some sort of draw.
Sure.
But to have that aid, so you have income to prove that you have income, right? And then B, that you're not draining more money out of the business.
Yeah.
Prematurely.
Well, a lot of businesses have failed for that very reason, that the owner has taken too much.
Exactly. Or they're using that to pay their bills rather than pay themselves to pay their bills.
Yeah.
So there's not that right tracking that you need to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really good stuff. Well, Kristi, you are a fascinating person. When you're not helping people get into their dream home, when you're not coaching people on how to better their credit, when you're not writing books, what else are you doing with your life? Your time?
I love to read. I'm somewhere between 40 and 50 books a year that I read. I had started sharing with you when I first came in. Somebody told me I have to read this book. It's called Advanced Tax Strategies. And you both had your eyes rolling in the back of your head. That's what I felt like too. But it is for people who desire to build wealth through real estate. It talks about how to hedge taxes and really utilize it best for you. So it's not as bad as it sounds. Oh my gosh. That is awesome.
I feel about the tax strategy people like I do ambulance drivers. Yeah. I don't want to be one. I don't want to go out to traffic accidents, but man, am I grateful there are people in our society who want to.
Yes.
I'm glad your hobby is reading things like that.
Well, reading literally changed my life. So I didn't even read my first full book until after I'd graduated from grad school. It was always like the Cliff's Notes versions of everything, but reading has changed my life. So just having some of these little tips that I can share with the people I work with and that I can implement in my own life. And then also, so I think, that combination combination of really understanding and have excellent credit, and then the taxes, it could really 10x, 100x your wealth by the time that you're done during those, earning years. So this past October, I found my new goal. After I published the book, I kind of found myself in a little bit of like a dark spot. I'm like, why am I here? And the real estate market has been very different, and a big chunk of my life is work. So that did have an impact, but I learned that I am so goal driven, and I didn't realize it until that moment. I had this epiphany moment, and I needed a new goal to chase after in my life. So somebody had said, why don't you go to Toastmasters? You love doing, speaking events and speaking engagements. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I thought, well, shoot, yeah, let's go try it out. So I went to my first Toastmasters meeting, and you guys, there's these tiny trophies you can leave with. I love it because there's these little wins. So it's broken up into a couple of different sections, but there's something called table topics. And so there's a theme for each week, and somebody will look at you and say, Bill, and ask you a question. You pop up, you have 30 seconds to a minute and a half to answer it. And it's so much fun because it teaches you how to think on your feet. And I feel like a big part of where I struggle as a listener is when I'm listening to something that you're saying, I'm in my own head about how I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
So I'm not really listening to you. So it's helping you to think more quickly on your feet, so I don't have to be so in my head with my thoughts. I can truly listen to what you're saying, take a moment, and then have my response. And so it builds confidence. I leave with these little trophies. So I have all these little wins. How many wins do we have in our day or in our week? Probably not enough, right?
Yeah.
So it's something to celebrate.
Everybody can use more wins.
Everybody can use more wins. But here's the fun part for me. I learned in the first couple of weeks, there's big contests. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. Tell me more. And they said, oh yeah, there's a world champion Toastmaster. I'm like, shut up.
Wow.
I love this. So now I'm in this big goal to become a world champion Toastmaster. Like, why not?
So have you seen some of the previous winners in action? Do you know what you're up against?
I've watched all of them. I got on YouTube.
I bet they're really good, right?
They're really great. I got on YouTube and just binged for a whole afternoon. And I watched the second place and the first place because I wanted to see what was the difference between the first place and the second place. Like what was the mannerisms? What was the setup? What resonated? What didn't, And so I won for my club. Now I'm waiting for the dates for our area. And then when I win for the area, then there's the district. And in our district, there's over 2,000 people. I don't know how many people are competing, but I just know there's over 2,000 members. And then you go to this national level and then the world championship stage. So why not? It's fun to have a goal. And you know what I've learned? Every time I fail, I'm one step closer to success. So, I'll learn from it. I'll grow from it. It's a lot of fun.
So where is the world championship held this year?
This year it's in Anaheim, California.
Oh, it's just right here in the good old USA.
Last year was in Bahamas.
Right next to Disneyland there.
Yeah.
Wow. I've heard of Toastmasters. I didn't know what it was. And I'm still kind of learning.
Well, most people think it's public speaking, and that's part of it. But I really believe it is mastering the art of communication. And a lot of communication is listening. So when there is a scheduled speech, I do my speech, I have 5 to 7 minutes to present it, and then there's an evaluation. And it's my favorite part. Like the first time I was terrified. Oh my God, they're going to rip me apart. And they do the sandwich method, right? This is what you did really great. I really enjoyed this about you. I noticed that, and then they go on to what I can improve upon. I noticed that when you were speaking, your eyes rested really on the two front people. Maybe take some time and have your eyes land with some other people in the room, right? So some suggestions like that. One of my feedback from my
it's essentially group coaching.
It really is, and it's a safe place to do it.
Yeah.
So I get really excitable. And my evaluator said, pause, take a breath, take a moment. And I realized that there's something to be said about the vocal variety and the pace in which you're sharing too. There should be times where you're talking a little bit, more excited. And there are some times for vocal that you should slow down. So I've learned a lot about myself. I feel like I'm growing personally and professionally. And so for any business owners out there that need to pitch, if you're pitching to a bank for a loan, if you were pitching to a potential client, if you were trying to present to get some more people on, I just think the art of communication is so important. And so you can learn so much from it. It's really extraordinary. And it's cheap. It's super cheap. It's like $60 for half a year.
Wow.
Like, that's it.
So how often do they meet?
There are some clubs that meet every other week. The
Okay.
club that I'm part of meets every week. There's no lashes and beatings if you don't make it, but it's a lot of fun. Even when I don't speak, I learn so much from the other
Right.
people in the room. And there's usually really extraordinary people around you
That
because
is-
they're wanting to improve their lives too. So
Yeah, of
I encourage
course.
you, in your spare time, go check one out. They're all over the place. So Toastmasters.org, you can go and check that
Yeah,
out.
it's exciting. I want to just touch briefly on something you said a minute ago about, when you're listening to somebody, you're formulating your next
Yes.
thought. And that really came home to us because when we're doing these podcasts like we're doing at the moment, we want to try to keep the conversation moving. So we're thinking about where is it going next and what do we want to say. And sometimes after we've recorded a podcast and we listen to it a week or two later, it's a completely different experience because you are only listening and you're not having to formulate any thoughts to contribute to the conversation. That was a real eye opener for me when we started doing the podcast. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, because it is. I don't go back and listen to a lot of them because I don't like to hear my own self sometimes. But I do find that we had one of our doctor friends, Tim Anderson, was on. He rattled off a lot of like medical advice that I couldn't write down fast enough, and so I went back and listened to that entire podcast again. It was like, oh my goodness! I listened to it twice and I took notes because there was so much
So good.
knowledge
Mm-hmm.
in those. And so when you hear them, it allows you to kind of like digest a little bit better.
Yeah.
Active listening is important. I'm actually taking a master class with Chris Voss, the hostage negotiator guy,
Yes.
the guy who wrote "Don't Split the Difference."
Never split the
Never
difference.
split, yeah.
Fantastic.
And so I'm about halfway through that class, and he's got some great active listening techniques and just kind of how he labels things and how he handles conversations. And just I'm not much of a reader, but that kind of education gets me excited.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
How many people are usually in a club?
It depends on the club, but I've seen anywhere from 10 to 40.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So not crazy.
Yeah. I think most of them are probably 15 to 20.
I imagine like a conference room with thousands of people and you're up there speaking and my knees might shake a little bit.
No, it's not like that at all. But
Yeah.
honestly, when you do your icebreaker speech, all of a sudden you're just like, oh yeah, I can do it because you just did it, know? Yeah.
Yeah. And we do things like that. And
It's really
right?
energizing
Yeah.
to succeed at that too. Isn't
For
it?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kristi, how can our audience get a hold of you? What's your YouTube channel? How do they get a hold of you if they want to talk about loans, all the good stuff?
Yeah,
How do
for
they buy
sure.
your books?
Yeah. So I'm on Amazon for both of the books. And if you put in my name, I know my name will be listed here. So you'll see the spelling because it is a mouthful. But you could also Google or just search Credit Kristi. And that's Kristi. I also have a podcast. It's called Credit Coaching by Kristi. And it's my ministry. I don't have any commercials. I don't make any money off of it. I probably have about 115 episodes so far.
Nice.
And most of them are 10 to 15 minutes, just teaching a short lesson on something credit related.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that. Man. Well, we are so glad you're here. We were talking off air about how we got to get you back on more
She
often.
needs to be a regular.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
thank you.
some good stuff. I just love your energy. I love what you bring to the table.
Absolutely.
And I just like that you have a heart for helping people when they just,
Yeah.
it's very vulnerable getting a loan. You don't know what you don't know. And to have somebody in their corner like you is vital.
Thank
So,
you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
terrific.
that.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys. This
All
has
right.
been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.